Broadcasting from Studio 202 at the Springett Technology Center in Navasota, Texas, it's NOV Live. Now, here's your host, Michael Gaines.
Hello and welcome to NOV Live. I'm Michael Gaines and glad you're joining us today as we continue to bring you experts and expert perspectives in the energy world and the transformations that continue to happen in this space. So today we are going to continue actually in that spirit of transformation and talking about digital transformation. So our guest today, Carl Fehres, who's the VP of Digital Strategy, will share some insights and perspectives on not only his journey, but looking at the journey here at NOV and broadly and some of the changes that we've seen there. So it should be a really good conversation and look forward to having you be a part of today's show. So in keeping with participating and finding out ways you can be a part, I want to head over to our social media desk with Shelby Dumaine. So hey, Shelby, good to see you.
Hey, Michael, it's good to see you as well. And thank you, everybody, for joining today. We're really looking forward to an excellent show. And if you want to get involved in the show, there's a couple ways you can do so. For today, the easiest way you can get involved is by joining our live Q&A session that we'll have at the end of the show. And you can do that by simply commenting. Whether you're watching this on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you can put any question you have for our guest today in the comments. And at the end, we are going to answer some of those questions live on the air while we have our expert in the room. So we're very excited about that. We always love doing that Q&A every show. Another way you can get involved is maybe after the show you think of another question, or maybe you've watched a past episode on nov.com/live and you have a question about that. There's that URL on the screen there, but in case you have a question from one of those past shows, you can also email those to socialmedia@nov.com. So you can email us later, but for today, if you want to get your question asked on air, just go ahead and comment it below. Again, if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, I'm here. I got my screens up, looking at all of those. I love to see where you're tuning in from. Maybe if you have any guesses for the Rig Geek here in a moment. But go ahead and put those comments all in the comment section. So speaking of the Rig Geek, that's the time of the show where I ask you my question. So it's time for a Rig Geek Post of the Week.
Rig Geek's Post of the Week.
All right, and as Michael mentioned, we are talking about digital transformation today. So if we're going to ask kind of a fun question, if you are in the digital space or maybe you're fascinated by it, you might know the answer to this. We're asking, what do the acronyms AR, VR, and AI stand for? If you think you know it, go ahead and let us know in the comments, and we will reveal that answer at the end of the show. All right, back to you, Michael.
Shelby. I thought you were going to ask AR, VR, and we should take all the letters and make a word scramble, because I'm a big word find fan. So,
that'd be a hard word.
That's okay. Cool, great. Thanks, Shelby. All right, so as we talked about, we're going to be talking about digital transformation, and as I mentioned a moment ago, our guest today is Mr. Carl Fehres, who is the VP of Digital Strategy here at NOV. So, Carl, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So I'll lead off talking about the phrase that we all hear. We hear, digital transformation, and we hear a lot of organizations, and I would even say, especially in the energy industry, talking about how they should adopt a digital transformation strategy. When you think about that phrase, how do you anchor that? Maybe we'll start there. How do you think about digital transformation? What does that mean in your mind?
Yeah, it can mean a lot of things. Turning everything that was analog into digital, or taking everything that was physical paper and turning it into digital. I think things really started. I mean, we've been digital as a world for a long while. We've been building control systems as an OEM for a long time. What's changed is in the last 15 years with the advent of the iPhone and some other electronics is the maturity of compute, the maturity of storage and communication. And these things being extremely plentiful and free and powerful in the last 15 years. I mean, you've got a watch now on your wrist that's got more compute power than the $6,000 computer I had when I went to college. And, for almost free, cloud compute, infinite storage, infinite compute, and the rest of it. And with all those things, and with cheap sensors that are pennies now, you can measure anything, and people are. So there's trillions of sensors that are coming online. You're able to communicate the results of that stream up to a cloud infrastructure and compute at incredible scale. And with all that comes now really artificial intelligence coming into its own. So AI principles have been around since the 50s or earlier, but haven't been realized because we didn't have the compute and the storage and the technology capability until really now. And now it's so abundant and so cheap that anybody can do it. And so more companies are doing it. And so that's, I think, why digital transformation is really a buzzword today, is that in the last 10 years now, we've seen extraordinary growth in these areas and an acceleration of adopting those technologies to really catapult forward and optimize every facet of a business or an operation.
So when you look at NOV's journey in this space, I know that you and many others were a part of those early efforts to really help accelerate NOV's movement into this phase and space of continuous digital transformation. What does that look like, and how did you tackle that, especially as we look at NOV as an OEM, original equipment manufacturer? What did that look like, and how did those early conversations and journey start?
Yeah, so what I'll say is, again, when I think about digital transformation, I try and think of it holistically through what the company's trying to do. And so you get, our CIOs, Cormac and Jay and Alex, who have been focused on ERPs and evolution of those things and optimization of those things internally. That's all part of it. Control systems, Novos, and those automation systems that we have built out. What's new in the last 5 or 6 years is really trying to operationalize all the OT data, operational data coming in. So collecting, aggregating data from all the sensors, all the control systems, and making use of that to combine it with IT data and to offer new products and services to the customer base. So again, we as an OEM, the first natural place where we applied that technology was condition monitoring. And using, basically building out condition monitoring tools and services, aftermarket services, so that we could strengthen our equipment and make sure that it was longer lasting and there was no downtime surprises. The second place where we started applying it was really in operational efficiency. So again, anything you can measure constantly, you can continually improve on. And so we're applying artificial intelligence to optimization solutions now that plug into the drilling control system, that allow us to drill faster, complete faster, and those types of things. And that's really where we started.
When you look at, starting there, I know that there was a lot of things that were new and really trying to understand how do we want to position ourselves. So looking from the beginning to now, of course, technology has changed, technology adoption has accelerated immensely. The way organizations in any aspect of the energy space have really changed the way that they incorporate technology and really the digital aspect of it. How have you seen the change from when we first started to now?
So I think when companies realize the potential, they get excited, and as did we. And when you start out, we all struggled with the basics of just getting a handle of the data, which conceptually sounds really easy. You connect to a control system, you get some input, you get some inputs coming in, you store the data, you send it to the cloud. That all sounds really easy. The reality of things is a lot different. And as an OEM with tons of different control systems, building a lot of different and using a lot of different protocols, we found that out. We knew that early on. And so I think a lot of companies struggle with just getting the basics done so they can take advantage of the data and then actually get the value out of it. I think most companies in the first 3 or 4 years of their journey spend an insane amount of time just getting the basics to get the data. And they spend so much time and focus on getting the data that they sometimes lose track of the final objective, which is to harness it, apply artificial intelligence, their own subject matter expertise, and to drive value from the data. They get lost in just the basics of handling the data. Because, again, because storage and computer have all been cheap doesn't mean that handling of all that information with all the protocols was easy. It's actually very difficult. In the last 3-4 years, edge technology has continued to evolve. We've got our own edge platform that we believe is one of the best in the world. But again, I think most companies struggle with that. Now I think we're getting to the point where the fundamentals are falling into place, and the industry is looking towards pushing standards, OSDU, standard formats, interoperability, sharing of information, so that we can take the work that's been done and really operationalize it and take advantage and see the benefit of all this work that's been done.
So if you're just joining us, we're talking with Carl Fehres, the VP of Digital Strategy here at NOV, and we are talking about digital transformation and what that looks like in the energy industry. So if you have a question or comment for Carl that you'd like for us to pose to him in our Q&A portion, feel free to put that in the comment section, regardless of if you're watching us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can before the end of our program. So Carl, I wanted to maybe pivot slightly and talk about some of the barriers that you might commonly hear from folks within the energy industry in terms of maybe willingness and maybe a perceived ability to move forward in terms of adopting a transformation stance, and then also kind of how would you address that? Because I know historically maybe there have been some, if you're looking at the adoption curve, some are early adopters, some are a little bit on the backside. But how do you look at that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think with any new technology, there's a hesitance to accept it, and with something digital like this, especially artificial intelligence, anything driven by AI, it's fundamentally different than traditional programming languages. When something goes wrong, AI is driven, deep neural networks and that type of technology a lot of times is driven from building an algorithm the same way the human brain works. And so where traditional programming is more, if there's a bug, if something happens the way, in a way that you didn't expect it to, then you can go and find the bug, you correct the code. AI is more along the lines of, I've got to trust this artificial intelligence algorithm, and I can't make a correction unless I train it more, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's sort of a bit of trust with that, and it's like anything else. It's like a Tesla's self-driving algorithm, for example. The more data it gets, the better it gets. Mm-hmm. And so it's analogous to sort of trusting another human or another person almost, and that comes over time. So I think the journey to trust to an AI system is one where you start with an advisory solution, and when the advisory solution is time and time and time again correct, then you start trusting it to plug it into the control system and have it actually doing more and more throughout time. So that's one thing. When you talk about the industry, I think the struggle that we have is that a lot of times the industry is looking for better performance, obviously. But every time you introduce new technology, somebody's got to incur a capital expense. They've got to retrain crew. They take on that risk of, hey, maybe it's early adoption and things don't work exactly the way they should from the start, and there's a time period there. And so there's a risk that's there. And the risk is usually taken on by the service provider. And the incentives right now are day rates, right? And so they're putting out capital investment and training investment on their crew, but their day rates don't necessarily change. And so I think when we introduce new technology, every component within the industry needs to take advantage, some piece of that financially, so that we're all incented to move forward together. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, no, I'll we mentioned one of the acronyms, talking about AI as well, and I think you find a mixed bag of maybe perspectives or feelings on the space of looking at AI generally. but even more specifically, kind of drilling down, looking at AI as it relates to the energy industry. For an organization or someone that may not be fully either engaged or dialed in there, how would you maybe advise or talk to someone who could be potentially on the fence or may not necessarily see as maybe the initial benefits of incorporating that particular digital tool into their tool set?
Yeah, I mean, I think you don't have to trust AI to start with. Use it as an advisory starting point. You still use your human intuition, your experience to drive the final selection of whatever it is you're trying to do. And we see that internally. So we've got an analytics team headed by John Walters, and they are forecasting in pilot program inventory requirements forward-looking. So they're forecasting. And one of the things they've got inventory experts who have been doing this for decades without artificial intelligence. So he's building models. And what they do is they use that machine learning, that artificial intelligence solution, the model solution, as a starting point now, and then they use their intuition and their experience to modify that to a different result. And as they continue using this thing over months and months and even years, they'll start to trust the model better. The models will improve over time, and who knows? Maybe in a couple of years, that function is almost more automated. So it's just like trusting a human. You've got to do that through using something over time. But again, the opportunity is to use these as advisory solutions to start with, as starting points, and then to use human intuition and human experience to modify those parameters, and then to actually execute whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
So the high level, if as you see it, is don't fully eliminate the human from the equation. Be willing to engage and adopt these new technologies for the benefit of your organization, for your customers, those around you, and recognize that there can be significant upside to having that approach to your organization.
It's a tool. It's another tool in the toolkit for anybody doing any type of operation, really.
Yeah.
And I think, again, the opportunity through digital transformation is that you can apply that type of technology to an incredible number of processes, both internally and externally. And so you asked earlier, how do we start? We started by really focusing on our customer. How do we apply all this new technology to our customer base and get condition monitoring out there, improve our products, and improve our services? And John Walters and the team now are focusing more of that technology internally, which is, I think, fantastic. And I think that's where every company is going to start going, where you're looking at every opportunity that's out there. And I think when you talk about transformation, the real transformation is organizational. And so I think the magic happens when, say, for example, John Walters' team works with a certain manufacturing facility, and this algorithm that's predicting inventory requirements for a certain part starts to become really, really productive and good and solid. And it's got financial impact on the organization. Now that inventory manager is talking to all his counterparts within his organization and other organizations, and everybody else gets excited. And then that conversation moves to other areas of the business, and they start thinking, maybe I could use that technology to do this, that, or the other thing. So you start really transforming the company. And I think our job as a corporation is to enable our employees to do that by giving the right people the right access to data, the right tool sets, the right training, so that you can take every subject matter expert in the company and have them thinking, how can I apply that to what I do to make my overall performance in my area better? So, and what happens as a result of that is the entire company moves forward. You become a data-driven company. And I think that's the real transformation. So we can talk about the transformation in the industry, and everybody likes to talk about, I need to drill faster, complete faster. And those are all true, and we're all working on those things. I think what's not been said is that we need to work on every aspect of our business as well and apply the same technologies there and really become a data-driven organization.
Do you find that a company or folks within an organization who say, yeah, we're moving forward, adopting a digital transformation, a digital strategy, do you find that necessarily means we're trying to reduce the number of people that are involved in an organization? Do you find that those are synonymous, or those aren't necessarily coupled?
No, again, I think it's, this is a toolkit. This is a tool to be used by the employees, and they need to use their judgment. And so again, the idea is that we're trying to make every employee better, give them better tools so they can make better decisions so that we are overall more efficient. And that's it. It's not to eliminate jobs.
I almost kind of think of it as, you see some of those images of folks have the kind of exoskeleton, right? So it's not necessarily we're trying to remove the people. We're trying to enable them to do something even more than what they could do on their own. I don't know. Maybe I'm too far in the sci-fi world, but
No Terminators in the shop
no
floor
Terminators.
just
No,
yet.
none
Not yet.
of that. But yeah, empowering them to be able to do even more than historically what they're able to do.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I know I've been rapid firing at you, so I'm gonna get Shelby in here to get some of the questions that I think folks online have had for Carl here.
Yeah, absolutely. So this first question comes from LinkedIn. Can you talk a little bit about how the things we've talked about, digital transformation, maybe AI or automation, how those things might affect downhole operations?
Downhole operations. Well, again, for me, that's just, part of the drilling activity. I think, we've got wired pipe, we've got a long string measurements that we use, so we can literally measure almost anything that's happening downhole in real time. And knowing what's actually happening downhole with the long string measurements and downhole tools, sending that telemetry data up allows you to react faster. So avoid stuck pipe, drill faster, optimize the overall performance of rig operations. And so, again, I think a lot of great work in developing new technologies, new sensors, and the wired pipe itself is revolutionary. You've got closed loop drilling now, which enables you to do that. We were using mud pulse before, which was it's great, but it's a very, very small bit of data compared to what we can do with wired pipe. And so, and we're seeing huge benefit from that now. The industry is seeing huge benefit from that.
Excellent. And then we often, because we go live on LinkedIn as one of the platforms, we get a lot of people who are maybe starting their career in oil and gas or energy, and they're kind of trying to find their place. So if someone hears this or sees online about digital transformation in energy, what might they be able to do to, get in that space or kind of prepare themselves, whether it's education or what experience would you want to see from someone wanting to work in digital transformation in energy?
Yeah, digital transformation covers a lot of different domains and topics. You need subject matter experts in traditional business practices, whether it's manufacturing or engineering, what have you, that have an open mind to leveraging digital technologies to improve things. And then on the other side of things, you've got people that are dedicated with training, like data scientists, for example, who would work with a subject matter expert to come up with a solution. And so I think it depends on sort of what your interest is. If you're a hardcore electrical, mechanical engineer, a design engineer, manufacturing person, inventory person, and that's what your passion and love is, stay there, but think about and educate yourself about the possibilities in your domain to apply those technologies to what you do. If you're going through school right now and math and science and statistics are really interesting, there's no hotter field than data science. And data science is applied not only to oil and gas, but every other real technical industry in the world, actually. And so it's a great area. We need more of them. I think every industry needs more of them, and I don't think that's going to slow down for the next 30 or 40 years. So I think it's a very hot area. So.
Excellent. And I think we actually got a really great sort of follow-up question to that on LinkedIn from Varun. He was asking, what role do you feel or what opportunity does AI pose for the job market in petroleum, energy, or maybe earth scientists, that kind of realm?
Petroleum market and earth science.
So AI specifically instead of just data or digital in general.
Artificial intelligence in general. AI can be, again, applied to almost, AI is a very broad term. And I think that's where, people get hung up a little bit. It includes all types of things like machine learning and deep neural networks and pattern recognition, all these domains. And so AI is a very umbrella term. And I think when you look at very specific things, machine learning, for example. You can apply machine learning to almost anything that is coming in real time to forecast. And forecasting and understanding what's going to happen, and then building prescriptive solutions to optimize the outcome of something. And so again, analytics, when you start applying it, you start with describing what happened in the past. Once you describe something, so it's like reporting, right? Once you start describing something that happened in the past, you see something interesting in the data, you start digging into that phenomena. Once you dig into that phenomena and you understand it, you can predict what's going to happen in the future. And once you can predict it, you can model, if I make these tweaks to my operation, then I can get the outcome that I want. So you can apply that to so many things, not only in a drilling process or a completions process or some machine process, but machine learning, like I say, John Walters is applying that to internal supply chain management problems. And I think that's where that's where the new opportunity is to really understand what's possible, and then to take your subject matter expertise and come up with these ideas. So again, I'm not an expert in inventory or manufacturing. My expertise lies somewhere else. The organization, I think if we do a good job of digital transformation, educates every operational person in the organization in different domains with what's possible, so that they can think about, how do I apply that to what I do every day? Mm-hmm. And that's really exciting.
Yeah. And we keep getting more good ones in, so I'm going to keep going. I think I'll ask one more just for time's sake, but this also comes from LinkedIn. Do you think digital transformation plays a key role, or will play a key role, in renewable energy now or in the future?
Yeah, no, I think absolutely. Renewable energy we like to say that we're in that space already, because it's very similar to what we've done for decades. It's big, heavy equipment. So you think about a windmill or solar panels. There's optimization that needs to happen. They're big machines that move, especially windmills. And so, wind, solar, geothermal, similar in nature. So you need condition monitoring. You need to optimize the performance of the equipment. You need to look for bad things coming up. You need to point, the wind turbines in the right direction. So AI is there already. In a lot of ways, they started, they started earlier than oil and gas in some ways. So in optimizing how wind farms are operating to get the most out of them. So I think it's a huge future, not just in oil and gas, but really every heavy industry out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, thank you. And I did want to mention from your last answer, if anyone in our audience is interested to hear from John Walters, I think we might have to have him back on the show, but we do actually have one episode of him from Inside Out Horizons, where one of our hosts, Cass Casey, interviewed him. So if you're interested in checking that out, that is also on our site, nov.com/live, along with all of our past episodes. So I just had to plug that. I heard his name and I went, we have a show with him. That's really great. But I think we might have to have him back on. So stay tuned for that. But with that, John, thank you so much for Carl. See,
I wanted to call him John too. He's got a face like John, but it's really Carl. I know he fools me all the time. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm
John's
convinced
younger
it's
and a lot better looking.
Well, Carl, thank you so much for answering our audience's questions. And I did want to go ahead and reveal the Rig Geek answer. So at the beginning of the show, we asked a little bit of a trivia question. And if you were listening close, you might have gotten one of the answers there. We'll go ahead and put it up one more time. If you want to try to answer it real quick, I like to try to talk a lot and stall, give you a few more seconds to answer it. But we asked, what do the acronyms AR, VR, and AI stand for? So without further ado, the answer to that, for AR, we have augmented reality. VR is virtual reality. And if you're listening, we know AI is artificial intelligence. So thank you so much for commenting and asking your questions and playing along for Rig Geeks. And again, if you ever have any more questions that you think of later or you think of in a past show, you can email those to us at socialmedia@nov.com. And with that, I will hand it back over to you, Michael.
Thank you, Shelby. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you to our guest, Carl Fehres, for talking to us about digital transformation. So Carl Fehres, VP of digital strategy here at NOV. So appreciate you joining us. And as always, thank you to our viewers for joining us. As Shelby mentioned earlier, if you'd like to watch previous episodes of our show, head over to nov.com/live, where you can find all of our past episodes. Our conversation today, again, was with Carl Fehres, VP of Digital Strategy here at NOV. Shelby Dumaine is our social media specialist here. We've got Paul Dufio and Wei-Han Lin in the production side of today's show. So from all of us here at NOV, thanks for watching and for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.